You're listening to the 4-Phase Cycle podcast with your hosts, Dr. Alex and Megan of ZESTY Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you've definitely come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and best friends, we use the 4 phases of the female cycle in combination with functional lab work and mindset practices to transform the lives of the women we work with.
We also have a whole lot of fun along the way. If you're new around here, it's best to start with season 1 before jumping around and plan to roll up your sleeves. Showing up for ourselves and enjoying our lives is what good health is all about. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making changes.
Hello, lovely souls. It's Alex, and it is day 20 of our 28-day series for Flowing with Your Cycle. So we are getting really close to the end. I cannot believe it, but I'm so excited for day 20 because we are really nearing the transition point into phase 4, which is the week right before your period. So sometimes this is where more problematic things are popping up, and we're going to talk about some practical and some overall emotional aspects of this, because even with some of the uncomfortable stuff that pops up, there is a way to repurpose some of it for a higher good and make it work for you instead of being something that consistently represents a way that you have failed, which is how most of us then perceive it, and they're, oh my gosh, I've been trying so hard and I'm messing it up, right? Or any variation of that. That's just a common song that we hear sung. So we're going to talk about repurposing today. Before we get to that though, I wanted to invite you to our Ultimate Hormone Health Blueprint series. We do it once a year and it is a 3-part video series starting September 7th that then culminates into a live training where you'll get to chat with us, talk to us in real time, and we'll take you through an entire training specifically for what you have going on. The goal of the Ultimate Hormone Health Blueprint is to begin to show you the framework, the steps, and the approaches that we have seen to be most productive, most helpful, most powerful for truly addressing hormone-related symptoms that you have going on in your life. And just as a reminder, it's not all, you have to have a period problem to have a hormone problem, right? Anything that is anxiety, depression, your sleep cycle, your energy throughout the day, your libido, your fertility, your kind of drive, how good you feel about yourself, your energy levels throughout the day, all of that comes back to hormones. And of course, hormones really come back to how did the brain tell the hormone producing organs to make that stuff in the first place. A lot of times people don't realize, and this is why we have this series, is that yes, you can absolutely impact hormones, and we have lots of ways to do that. And still, Meg and I always take it back to, why was this the outcome of the hormones? Because someone decided that, right? And it was our own brains that decided that. And when we miss the ultimate root cause, kind of the decision maker, a lot of the other stuff can hit not so well or not as optimally as we want, even when you're doing kind of the components of the right stuff that would help. The whole system can be supported so that you're essentially turning on the turbojets behind you. You're not fighting your own body to heal, where there's competing goals and some parts are being addressed and not others. So please join us for that. The link is going to be below in the show notes. Otherwise, it's zestyginger.com/ultimate hormone blueprint. zestyginger.com/hormone blueprint. All right, so cool. Join us for that, and we'd love to see you on the live as well. The live training is going to be 90 minutes. It's going to be awesome, and there's going to be gifts. So come check that out with us. All right, So let's go back to this whole repurposing, right? We talked about detoxing, and we have been in this phase of the cycle for phase 3. And yesterday I went into a small recap. You can find the full version in season 1, but why detoxing was important regardless of which category of hormone imbalances you fall into, and there's customization involved in terms of how to really listen to your body and make sure you're not pushing things too far and kind of hurting your case instead of helping you. So we talked about that. Now there's also this concept of repurposing, because we can detox things like get out of social media, like we talked about yesterday, for a while. And then there are things where we can look at and say, this is how I've used this in the past, and now I get to reevaluate, especially because this portion of the cycle, it's all about follow through. It's kind of systematically thinking through everything and setting yourself up for success and really taking the action steps to ensure that it is truly set up. And the same is then because the brain is good at that, it's also a really great time for being creative with how we repurpose aspects of our lives. And when things come up, we'll talk about some emotions, reframing options for those kind of things. And how can I use things that come up in my world to the best of my ability, given what I know now. And as you can imagine, that's going to shift and change over time. But as long as you're paying attention, you will always figure out that next step in whatever way that you need. So the brain is really primed for this. Really, now then, our job is to ask the questions and allow ourselves to hear the answer for ourselves. Again, you have heard this the whole time, but this is not what do Alex and Megan think I need to do? This is not what does my boss think? What that one doctor 4 years ago, what they thought I should do. All of us that do this stuff are just resources, and we're bringing things up. But even someone who works with us in another 4 years, we would still encourage them to ask, what is best for me then? Right? That doesn't discount the work that they did with us, but now you're 4 years down the road. Some things may be different, and that's why when we work inside our Healthy Hormones group program, we're talking about setting up lifestyle tools, food, movement, understanding the lab work, understanding your supplement toolkit in a way that sets you up for the next 5 to 10 years. That's how we think about. That's how we come up with those things. Because if we can give someone the toolkit and then they know how to work with their body and get the answers, right? Then you're off to the races, because it's not checking with someone new or the same person every couple years or a couple months. It's how do I lead the charge? Now I have a toolkit for a significant period of time, right? And some people, I plan to use mine forever. So that's essentially how it goes. Now it will shift, but that's why I really appreciate having a very big toolkit. I just pick the things that I need now, knowing that some of the other ones will have a time and a place later. And some other ones may never come up again, and that's cool. We can let things go as well, but boy, I sure appreciate having the understanding in order to use the big toolkit that I have. It's also the exact same reason why we teach women how to interpret their own labs. We're not like the holders of the information, like, oh, you have to come back and work with us to get stuff. We're like, oh, no, we're going to teach you, cut you loose. There's a whole bunch of other women to help. This is not how do Megan and Alex have the same people coming back. This is how do we get people up and running, teach them to do it, and then let them go and teach the next group, right? That's why we do it that way, and that's the whole purpose of really understanding and knowing which questions to ask, knowing the systems that you're playing in, because this is what happens. It frees you from needing, kind of always authority to tell you exactly what to do. And that is the whole point of why we do what we do. All right, so repurposing. What does this look like? So let's start practical, because part of what happens when people start working on their hormone health is that people start to realize how much their environment also plays a role in their health, because the truth is the modern environment can have a lot of hormone mimicking substances in our food and our water and off-gassing of furniture, paints, all of that stuff. Now, the reason we work on our health is that you are equipped and have the reserves to handle the life that you're living. This is not, oh my gosh, why is our world so messed up? This is so wrong. I'm going to go hide in a cave. I think we have had that kind of response in the past, but then we were like, well, isn't that the whole point of having good health? Like, I don't need to be scared of everything, but I do want to be able to manage it and make the best choices for me. And when I go over to a friend's house and they're using, cleaning products that I wouldn't use, I also don't need to, freak out about that or feel like I need to give them a lecture or whatever. Right? That it really frees us up to say, I'm going to show up for myself and make the best decisions I can. So with that, one of the things that people tend to want to change kind of quickly is their use of plastics in the home. And that is certainly a source. Now, this is just me picking from a handful. So there's lots of ways to improve your environment and the sort of compounds that are in it. But for example, if people are heating food or eating often out of plastic containers, those can have compounds that look like hormones but are not actually usable as hormones in the body, and it can confuse the process. This is most notable when you already have imbalances, right? So the better you feel, the less you'll notice. But obviously, the opposite is true. The worse you feel, then that can be an opportunity to be alerted to that. So repurposing. A lot of people are like, well, gosh, how do I throw these away and get a whole new set, right? And it's expensive and I'm wasteful and whatever. For introing this whole concept of repurposing, one thing I like to do is honor the fact that I was lucky enough to be able to have those things in the first place. There's a lot of people that don't, right? And so I'm not throwing it in the landfill, but how can I repurpose those containers or things that I'm not going to use for food anymore into something that's handy, something that's beautiful, right? So for example, I used to have these taller plastic containers for food where they were like thicker and you could do big things of soup and things like that. And then once I stopped, then those containers became, for example, I cut different lids for some of them, and they're the trash cans in the cars, right? They're small, and then they have a lid, and the lid basically keeps the lining for the trash in there, right? So I just have like a paper bag in there, and it keeps it open, and then the lid I can open and close and use it that way, right? So I didn't get rid of it. I'm not using it for food, but it's a little portable trash can, or I take it for other uses, or if I'm working on something and I use them. Or sometimes I use them for flower planters. Right? So for things that I've done in the past is get like burlap, get some twine or some other thread that I like, and then use the Tupperware containers or whatever you're using to plant pretty flowers. It's not food that I'm going to eat, like greens and stuff, but flowers, and then I wrap the burlap sack in a cute way around the container, and it kind of makes it look like a little planter. I'm actually not like super artsy in that regard, and yet like I like how they look. And so I'm happy with them. It's not a question of like, would you post it to Pinterest and tell everyone how you did it with a DIY tutorial? It's more just like, do you like it? Would you use this? Does it make you happy when you look at it? Right? All of these things. Or this is where I organize things. So now they are containers for organization for like different tools and cooking equipment, and make sure that I don't lose parts or batteries or the backs of things and screws and whatever. Right? So this is where there's really no need for anything more than just saying, when there are components in my environment that I am up leveling, how can I repurpose what I already have so that it enhances my life but does not, I'm not continuing to use it in a way that I don't feel like is the best fit for me right now. And that's a really cool place to be. There are, for example, I got these charcoal bags that they act as little compound sinks. So they're bags that you place around your house, and the charcoal inside collects some of the off-gassing components of our environment. And then at some point I was like, oh, they're working so well over here, let me repurpose them. We haven't upgraded our mattress yet. This was years ago. We hadn't upgraded, so I put them in the corners of our fitted sheet so that the mattress had that, right? And so these are all ways of saying, I already have some of this stuff. How do I repurpose it for a better use? Right? So that's physical things. And that can be a really fun process of the things that you're looking at going, oh, I don't want that anymore. Cool, what else can it become? And then that can turn into a really fun activity with kids or friends, or painting stuff or growing things, turning it upside down, see what it looks like to you. Can you use it now? This is just having fun and asking the question. And then once you hear the answer, going for it. Now let's talk about repurposing emotions. So one of the things that comes up in phase 3 and 4 is irritability and anger. Okay. So I'm going to use that as an example, but it can be anything that we're essentially like, that doesn't feel good. But then the question becomes, what purpose can it serve? Right? So right now, a lot of times it's coming up to let you know that whatever activity or whatever outward thing that you are seeing has a component that is in you also, and now you're recognizing it. Right? That's how it generally works, because it has to be present in ourselves in order for it to bother us on the outside. Right? Because this is the same as if someone says to me, I really hate your brown eyes. I'm going to be like, okay, but I don't have brown eyes. Right? Like, it's not going to matter to me. And so the same thing is true. I wish that person was communicating better with me. Sounds like I wish I was better at communicating, with myself or with others. So there's almost always that mirror reflection back. So when we talk about repurposing, then when it comes to emotions, at first we can really begin to recognize, what is this emotion here for? And then when it comes to, okay, now I've garnered the lesson or the realization that this emotion has brought up for me, now how do I want to channel it and repurpose it in a way that does support how I want to feel and where I want to go? So with things like anger, when that comes up for me, I start to ask questions of, how is this outwardly situation something that is present in me already? How does that show up? And then it's pretty quick to have answers. Our brain's really, once you start asking the question, the brain is really good at bringing up content. Right? So with that often gets me to a place where I can see things from a different point of view. Now it's not, they did that to me. It's, oh, I see how that is in me as well. And when I am in that situation, this is how I behave. Now I understand where they're coming from. I also understand myself better, and I have clarity around how I want to move towards improving that aspect of who I am, right? This isn't about changing other people, but it is pretty cool to watch that once you start doing this process, the other people reflect different things back to us, because that's no longer in us quite as much. Right? So this is very much that first beginning of learning. Now, once that happens, sometimes we've garnered the insight from it, and we still feel the emotion. We love the concept. There's even a book called that, but emotions are energy in motion, right? And when they're not actually too much in motion and they're stagnant, or you feel the vibration of that anger or frustration or irritability, but it's not shifting and moving and kind of resolving itself out, that's when they feel really bad. Because you have had probably where, you had a snap reaction, you got mad, and then the person's like, oh no, wait, this is what I meant. And you're like, oh, okay, no problem, right? And you just kind of move it along. No, it's gone. That's moving the emotion and letting it flow. Sometimes it gets a little stuck, and so then it feels bad because you're essentially, it's like holding on to a hot, something hot out of the oven and not letting it go. It's going to keep burning you. And so from that, this is where repurposing looks like, well, if it's anger and I feel activated, where does activated energy become useful in my life, right? Oh yeah, I did want to go work out today. You get the anger out in that, right? Or, oh, I'm so frustrated. I just want to move things along. Well, hey, you have your follow through list from what you're creating success in with your massive action step. Do you want to go do something on there, right? Is this something that says, this impulse and this insight really let me know that this is important to me? How can I go journal into getting clarity around how is this important to me, so that from a more calm, balanced place later on, I can go have a conversation with that person and really fundamentally change my relationship with them so that it works better for me and then I'm more available for them, right? The repurposing of it, again, this is like with the Tupperwares. You can do whatever you want with it, but asking the question of how is this useful to me gives it a different flavor. A lot of times it's much easier. If you've ever been like, I'm pissed, I'm going to go work out, you'll notice that it just takes a little while. As long as you don't keep thinking about the thing and recreating the scenario in your head, it actually vents out super quick, right? You just sort of move on. Or you're pissed and then you complain to a friend and then they start telling you a funny story. That thing is gone, right? So as long as you allow it to move, it generally happens pretty quickly. But now, here you are working out like you wanted to. And now you're like all geared up for it and it's working for you. Plus then you get your sweat on, you calm down a little bit, you already have the insight. Now you can also go talk to that person and come to some conclusions, some determinations, and really improve things for everyone involved. This is what repurposing looks like. So have fun with it. This is a really empowering thing to do, I think. And the reason I say that is because it's hard to live a life where you feel like you're at the mercy of a whole bunch of things, right? Everyone telling you what to do, emotions coming and knocking you off kilter. You're like, oh my gosh, why do I behave that way, right? It's just a whole lot of floating along, being like, what is the next thing that is going to come mess things up for me? But when we do this process and we're flowing through our life in this way and we ask better questions and we start to focus on using the things that come up in a way that serves us, well then this is really truly stepping into your own power, because things like our coach Lisa Carpenter always says, life's gonna life. It's what we do with it, right? What we make it mean and how we make it work for us that ultimately determines how that goes and how we feel in response to it. So it's always coming back to, how do I make it work for me in the best way possible, even if I do not like this thing being offered up. It's a cool place to be. Now, there's going to be times where you can do that. There's going to be times where you can't. And there is absolutely nothing wrong if you're like, well, today's just the day where I'm pissed and I sulk around and I'm going to go to bed early. And that is a different way of repurposing as well. So honor that if you have it, but it's kind of like with the hanging out we can have moments of downtime. We can have moments where we just sort of let life chill, and they're very appropriate at that time. And then when we do it too much, or we kind of lean on that, the feeling of stuckness can come from around the corner pretty darn quick. And so it's good to know where that line is for you. How much is, okay to just say, I'm going to let things be, and then sometimes saying, okay, now this is getting too painful to sit in this. I'm going to do something that works for me with it instead. And you're off to the races. All right, my loves. Thank you so much for being with me. Don't forget to sign up for the blueprint training, zestyginger.com/hormone blueprint, or click the link below. We are so excited to see you there. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for coming out to hang with us on the podcast. It is our goal to transform the way women are treated in healthcare. And we need your help. We need your help to get the word out. We have a lofty goal of 1 million downloads. And we know that as this podcast grows, we're going to be able to reach more women, get more amazing speakers for you, and bring the most cutting-edge information.
If you found these pod classes helpful, please take a moment to text 5 women you know the link to the series. We appreciate your help so much. Can't wait to see you next time.